first few knees that we've cut out of our white oak stumps are coming along in the boathouse, but there's a lot of work left to do out in the driveway to get the rest.
Yesterday the container arrived and we spent a goodly part of the day getting everything for sail cargo neatly packed into there, and man, it couldn't have fit tighter if we had planned it. But we got all of that loaded up, and since I spent most of the day just sitting in the machine pulling levers, I had a bit of energy when the day was over, and came out here and worked on carving out this knee a little bit so we can start to see how this rootstock's going to work out for us. And today, I think it's supposed to be a high of like 25 or something Fahrenheit. It's pretty chilly. It's in the teens right now. So not a super great day to be trying to work without gloves and doing fine measurements, but a fine day to be running the chainsaw and swinging the axe and the adze. So we're going to work on roughing these out a little bit. And the goal is to get these down to like 3-4 inch thick knees, and then we'll slap some linseed oil on them, stack them and sticker them out of the way for now. But we do need to get these down to some rough size in the not too distant future here so that they have time to dry and season a bit before we install them into the boat, hopefully this summer, if not this coming fall. So yeah, this is kind of rough. We're going to go through now and work on just getting this a little bit flatter and more level, and we'll flip it over and do the same thing to the other side and get it down to the point where it can start to season. Gotcha. Wondering if we stand it up this way, and I'll have you just kind of hold on to this, and I'll run the saw down it. Or maybe we can wedge it so you don't have to hold it. I'm not quite sure. But I think first thing is try to get it stood up, and I'll switch out to the rip chain and I'll see how far I can keep it and rip down here.
Okay.
Yeah, that should work. Okay. You want to do some ads work? I'll go make some lunch.
Yeah, try.
You've got boots on and heavy pants, and this is quite sufficiently curved.
I'll be down.
Cool. All right, we got our roughed out knee here. So this is way oversized. It is much too long, much too wide, much too thick, but it's at a good spot to let it start to season. So it's pretty flat. We can rub some oil on here and get a bunch more of these cut out and stack and sticker them and leave them for their day. But you can see pretty handily with the sapwood here how this grain makes almost a 90-degree bend. And that's exactly what we're looking for knees. So knees are kind of a triangular brace in the hull, and you can imagine that's your triangle, and having your grain run uninterrupted from one wing to the other wing makes this incredibly strong. If you wanted to compress this or pull this apart, you would have an incredibly difficult time, because that's exactly what this did. Is this buttressed the whole tree and kept it from swaying and falling over in the wind. So this is really hard, really dense, really tight grain, and it all follows that sweep, which is exactly what we were looking for. So let's take a look at the plans and see where these things will fit into the hull. We got the plans here, and there are a few different places in the boat that crooks or knees go in for bracing. So the two simplest ones are the breasthook in the stem and the stern, since this is a double ender, and those connect either side of the boat to the center line. Other places are underneath the decking in the way of the masts and underneath some of the deck beams connecting your deck framing down to your plank framing and your hull. So these knees that go kind of vertically underneath the deck are called hanging knees, and these knees that get mounted kind of horizontally up underneath the deck are called lodging knees. And then the one in the stem, and Arabella has one in the stern because she's a double ender, are the breasthooks. So we're not worried too much about the breasthooks. We're likely going to do those out of bronze when we get to them. What we're really looking for are the hanging knees and possibly some lodging knees. And these can be made out of crooks like we're doing. They can be done out of laminations. And they can be also made out of metal. So you could do them out of bronze or Monel or steel and galvanize them. But they all do the same thing and create kind of a corner joint and help add a bunch of rigidity to the boat. So let's go grab some of the knees that we took out of Victoria, and we'll show you kind of exactly where they're going to go in an Arabella and what that looks like kind of in real scale. So I'm pretty sure this knee is made of tamarack or hackmatack, which is a evergreen tree. It's actually not an evergreen tree. It's a needle-bearing tree that sheds its needles, and it grows up north of here in the bogs. And the reason that they use this tree is, one, it grows these amazing crooks to support itself in the bog, but two, since it's in the bog, there's no rocks, and they're a lot easier to harvest. We're dealing with oak stumps that grow in really rocky soil, so it's just tons of included rocks, and it's really challenging. So that's why they typically use these. They're a lot easier to get to. And we've actually never seen anybody use oak knees. I've read about oak knees, but I don't know of any, and I don't know of anybody who knows of any, because they are kind of a bugger to get out. But they give that beautiful curved grain, and the oak should actually be probably more rot resistant than the tamarack, which is added benefit. So let's throw this in the boat here and have a closer look about how this is going to go in and join these timbers together. Because we have bent frames, the edges of them, we're going to need to do a little of trimming to get these knees to fit to go across the boat. Right now it's a little bit of a funky angle, but you get the idea. So the knee goes in here and it connects to the frame, and then it connects to the deck beam that goes across the boat to the other frame. And it creates this really strong joint here and adds a bunch of rigidity, because otherwise they're just connected at those two tiny little points. So this would be a hanging knee, and then in conjunction with the hanging knee you put in lodging knees. So this would go something like that, and the deck beam would get wedged in there, and this would add a lot of rigidity to the boat, both fore and aft and port to starboard. So these are really, really important in the hull, and like we said, they can be made out of a bunch of different materials, and we're probably going to do a bit of mix between the grown oak ones and some homemade bronze ones. But we'll get to that in more detail and how they actually fit and precisely how many and where they're going to go into the boat once we get to that point. But now you kind of understand why we're going through so much effort to get these oak crooks out of the ground and get them prepped so that when it comes time to install these knees, the timber's ready for us.
That evening, Kira and I left to visit family for Christmas. Steve would be staying behind to wrangle the rest of the knees from their stumps. This time, the plan was to do a more thorough job of removing bark and rocks that could get in the way of the chainsaw.
Alright, had some lunch, sharpened up some chains. We'll do a little more cleaning on this with the wire wheel, and we'll see if we can start carving it out. I've found it's definitely worth the time to peel off as much bark as possible, because anywhere there's bark, including included bark, there is stones and there is dirt, and it just totals the chainsaw blades. So we'll give it a little more work, and we'll see what we can cut out of this thing. Ah, the advantages of a good cleaning, a good cut. All right. So I think next up will be this one. And then this one. So if I roll it, clean it, and start cutting this one down, I can see if I can get these to meet and pull that wedge out. And then it shouldn't be too bad to continue dismantling this bad boy. All right, I think I'm gonna call it quits here for the day. I got a good amount done. I'm getting better at this. I'm kind of figuring out what's what and how best to attack it.
But I'm gonna get it cleaned up, and I think I'm gonna go do a little bit of duck hunting while we got maybe an hour or two left to light. And then tomorrow I'll dive back into it. But I don't have to move them around or set up shop or anything tomorrow. I can just pull the tools out and get to work. So hopefully I can get through that one and maybe one more tomorrow and maybe 2 more days of stump cutting and we'll have the knees, 3 at most. We'll see how it goes, fingers crossed. All right. So I went for a little duck hunt yesterday on the brook. It was beautiful. It was a fantastic way to end the day of beating myself against these stumps. And the ducks were very wary, and they all flushed way before I got to them, which is totally fine. It was a beautiful day on the brook. But the geese, they were not so wary. So I brought home a good-sized Canada goose, and I think when Alex and Kira get back, we'll do a little Christmas celebration, the 3 of us, and cook up a Christmas goose that came right from the brook next door. So that'll be a great treat. Talk about forest to table. But anyways, let's get back to work. Well, if the neighbors aren't awake, they're about to be. So this may seem like I'm taking off a lot, and I am, because right now I'm taking what's meant to be a crosscut chain and I'm turning it into a ripping chain. I'm just sacrificing a few of the 20-inch chains that I had, and I hit a couple of rocks in there as well. So I'm changing the bevel and grinding out past those dents where I hit the rocks. So I'm taking pretty big bites right now. On subsequent passes, I won't be going as deep because I'll just be touching it up instead of changing the whole bevel. And I'm trying to just tap it and not heat it up too much and ruin the temper on it. But these chains are also getting worked so badly that it's not really, I'm not super worried about it. Saved the biggest one. Ha! Well, there's 2 left, but I'm wondering if we can get everything we need out of this one. Because that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Might do it. And if we don't have to mess with that other stump, awesome. But our friend Satchel is supposed to come by tomorrow, and all of the chains are smoked, and at this point I'm pretty beat, and I'm sure the neighbors are very tired of listening to the chainsaw. So
I think it is a good spot to clean up and stop for the day. I've only got like an hour, hour and a half of light left anyways. And then, yeah, I'll sharpen some chains and make some dinner and bring in firewood and do the household chores and be ready for when Satchel shows up tomorrow. And if he and I can hit this thing hard, we might be able to finish this one up tomorrow, which would be pretty awesome. All right, time to clean up.
Next week, Steve and friends will take on this beast. But before we go...
Yeah, they do new constructions. And, I don't think they usually build boats in that shoreline.
We just took a trip to Martha's Vineyard to visit Gannon and Benjamin Marine Railway for their open shop day and brought a camera along.
Look at these bronze floors.
Grown crooks. This is a grown crook. This is a white oak grown crook. You can see the grain comes and turns like that. So that's an offcut from frames from there. This was, I think this was Rocco's pizza wood. Yeah. This is a tree that was in one of the guys at Rocco's yard.
Andy kindly showed us around the shop, some client boats, and then he showed us his boat, an Ingrid. Arabella's design in fiberglass.
It really does, the boat does balance and gravity. That's the one.
Well, I guess you saying you forgot to hook up the windbay.
I love this. If you guys are doing an engine room, it's the
Oh,
prisms
yeah.
in the side.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Because prisms in the top always leak, but in the side, they don't leak so bad, and it lets a lot of light into the engine room. You know, it's got twin backstays, the triadic. It's got twin intermediate check stays, and then double lowers, and then two head stays. It's like so many wires.
Oh, no, my dad actually.
Yeah.